We're back with Carol, Mark, Director Brennan, and Lisa. Let me read a little bit more from the filing on the irregularities of the investigation. Quote, federal officials acted irregularly across the course of this investigation. Immediately after Mr. Comey's post, the Secret Service changed its policy to newly treat 8647 as a threat. Secret Service agents were also ordered to conduct unlawful surveillance of Mr. Comey and share their interview notes with the president. When the Secret Service declined to open a full investigation, the DOJ instructed the FBI to pick up the baton, which Director Patel eagerly did. The FBI acted irregularly, too. When the FBI applied for search warrants in March and May of 2026, long after the social media posts, those applications distorted the facts of the case. The newly installed political officials in the DOJ strove to accomplish what their predecessors could not, namely effectuating the president's desire to punish Mr. Comey. There is a long list of people, Carol Lennick, who touched this case and left. The prosecutor who secured the indictment has since removed himself from the case. The people who have signed on to this have also left the department, to say nothing of Eric Siebert, who was the first person who brought a different case to a grand jury, or refused to do that because he said there was not enough evidence. Just talk about the blast radius of everyone inside the Department of Justice and the FBI and the Secret Service now who's been forced to touch the stove that is this case.
Well put. It's almost pyrotechnic what they're touching. And I would estimate that this is now in the hundreds of public servants that Director Brennan and Mark were describing, who have been given the choice. Sign on to the president's desire to punish Jim Comey, the facts be damned, the predicate be damned, or else face a question about whether or not you're going to have a pension, health insurance, and a career. I understand why people feel really strongly that resignations should be the answer to an illegal order or an instruction that rubs people as inappropriate. But if you were a Secret Service agent, your chances of resigning from this job and having any kind of income in the near term and getting back into government later is really small, really, really challenging for people to leave that security clearance and that position. And I feel for them. But it's hundreds of people now, Nicole. You mentioned Eric Siebert involving that case. I want to just quickly say two things about that this was the case of allegedly lying to Congress, which on its face, we said at the time here at MS Now, and I reported, was illogical, and the facts did not actually justify any of those claims. Two different people were prosecuting that case, and they are no longer in government. They had serious qualms about it, we've heard from sources. But let me emphasize somebody who's really important to discuss about this matter. Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General who was fired by Donald Trump because she wasn't moving with the quick enough pace that he sought to go after his so-called villains. Todd Blanche took a lesson from that when he was named the acting Attorney General. She had not wanted to pursue this Seychelles case in 2025. She felt like it was weak. She felt like the lying to Congress case was better. Okay, but she can have that view. She's not wrong. Neither case was particularly strong, but you can see why the Seychelles case would not be a great one. When he was named acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche fast-tracked this case to a grand jury. He instructed that it would move quickly, despite what Pam Bondi had said before and her assessment. This was a case pushed by the guy who is up for a vote to be our Attorney General. And we just can't lose sight of, the sea change that he has made possible at the Department of Justice and the people he is sort of forcing to come to heel.
It's such an important point. And the other piece, I guess I would say, and I know this is foolish given who the Republicans are and what they do every single day, they do still have agency. I mean, if any of this is a bridge too far for any of them, you can always wake up. And again, not that I think they will, but this is not on autopilot. I mean, someone could decide that manufacturing an indictment against a former director of the FBI isn't a good idea. And maybe there's somebody else who could leave the department. tell me what to make of the mob piece of this. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get someone who was a government cooperator in the Gambino prosecution to say that Comey threw around the word 86. And I don't even understand. It's so batshit crazy, I don't even get it.
But let's talk about where it emanates from. So first of all, in order to treat this as criminal, the government has to overcome First Amendment protection. It's political speech unless they can show that this constitutes a true threat against the president.
But hasn't the Secret Service already decided that Comey is not a true threat against the president?
Yes, but nobody took no for an answer. So to Carol's point, right, the Secret Service, there's a document attached to these motion filings that show that the Secret Service treated this as what's called a non-referred matter, meaning they did not believe that there was criminality here to pursue. Notwithstanding that, that's when the FBI picks up the baton very willingly. They continue to try to investigate it, and then it appears as if that investigation sputters out until Pam Bondi is separated from her job, Todd Blanche is promoted as the acting attorney general, and then all of a sudden, things start happening with a rapid pace. They go to interview for the first time 2 weeks before the indictment the person who is the alleged central witness in this case. And let me just describe who that person is. We were talking about them in the last segment. Is a person, we don't know who this person is or what their relationship to the Comeys is, but the person sent Patrice Comey a text to describe her really strong displeasure with Jim Comey's post on May 15th, 2025. Patrice tells the U.S. Secret Service about that because that is what causes her to revisit her assumption that 86 is a restaurant term. She goes, she does some Google searches, and then she goes to her husband and says, you know, there are some people on the right who think this means something really different than what you and I think it means. I think you should take it down. When she talks to the Secret Service, she tells them about that text message from a former friend, it appears, and then they go and interview that person. But what the person says initially is revelatory of the fact that they have political animus towards Jim Comey themselves. Let me tell you a little bit about what Pat Fitzgerald says about that person. When they go to talk to her for the first time, she says she hasn't spoken to Jim Comey in 2 to 3 years, that she expressed disagreement with the role that Jim Comey's son-in-law, who is himself a prosecutor who has since been fired, we know that thanks to Carol's reporting, that he was a prosecutor of crimes committed on January 6, 2021 in the U.S. Capitol, and she has a problem with that. And then the person expresses regret to the Secret Service agents that they didn't have, quote, something more, end quote, to make the Comeys, quote, face consequences for this, end quote. And then they added, and this is the quote, I guess there's nothing that I can share that isn't just speculation on my part. But then they add that they hope Jim goes to jail for the things he did when he was the FBI director. Notwithstanding that, they go to visit this person again 4 days later. And that is a day after this person hears Rudy Giuliani on his broadcast, I guess a podcast or something else, where he repeats something he has heard on Newsmax, that Jim Comey must have been familiar with what 86 meant from all of his experiences as a mob prosecutor. That's what causes the FBI to try and shore up this theory. Here's the problem. Nobody tells them that except maybe Sammy the Bull, and he's not exactly credible.